Okay, welcome back to this Excel course. We are in the fundamentals section, and this video is going to be all about lookups. The reason this is in the fundamentals section is because this is the bread and butter of Excel, basically. You can solve entire competition cases just with lookups. Elliot Patterson does just that on his channel, and it's super important. You use them in almost every question, in every task, you will use lookups. So I'm going to explain with some data here. So this is real data from a case. It is a list of wines and their attributes across here and their price. So first of all, what is a lookup? A lookup is extracting data based on its relative position. So what do I mean by that? Well, its relative position might be something you determine, or it could be its relative position to something else. So let's do some examples. Let's say I want to find the fifth wine down in this list. So I can see it's that one. We can say index this list, comma 5, and it will give us the fifth wine in that list. Now, the reason I said lookups are extracting data based on its relative position is because if I was to pull the range down that we are searching in, the fifth wine is now not this highlighted one. It's actually this one here in blue, because I'm searching for the fifth wine based on my range. So it's kind of all relative to my range in that case. So with all these lookups in this session, I also want to teach you to do the reverse. So like the reverse of a lookup. So instead of the question, which wine is fifth down this list, let's propose the question, how far down is this wine in our list? So we can say X match this wine in this list, and it's going to tell us it's in position 5. Remember, this is all relative. If I pull my range down, it becomes the first wine in the list. Now let's explain XLOOKUP. Let's say we want to look for that wine and determine what its rating for body is. So it's this 30 here. Now let me just explain something about XLOOKUP because I think it's important. Let's take 10 numbers and the alphabet. Now let's say I want to look up what is next to 6 in this list. I could say XLOOKUP 6 in this list and return what's in this list. And of course it will give me F because that's next to 6. Now a lot of people think that XLOOKUP works in this way. It looks down the first list and then retrieves what's next to it. That's not what it's doing. It's a bit like this X match where this average A Zinfandel is 5th down the list. The first part of XLOOKUP is exactly like that X match. It's finding the number 6 here in this list and saying how far is it down? Okay, well obviously it's 6 down in this list. And then give me whatever is 6 down in the next list. So let me elaborate further. If I pull this list down over here, this XLOOKUP still works, although the item is not across from where I wanted, because it's only relative. So I'm looking for what's in this list relative to finding the item in this list. So hopefully that makes sense. Now with that said, let's get properly into some lookups. So the first type of lookups I'd say is like a one-dimensional lookup. We're just looking up in one column and return the next column. So let's do it for that wine. So I'm going to say XLOOKUP this wine in this column and give me whatever's in this column in the same relative position. So of course it retrieves this 30. Now let's say we wanted the body and the sweetness here. Well, with XLOOKUP what we can actually do is we can extend our range of what we're retrieving, and it will give us both of those numbers. So now that we know that, we can pull all attributes for the given wine, and they will appear in whatever order they appear in the table here. We're just retrieving, we're basically ripping them out. So now this is formula based, we could change this to any wine we like and get the new attributes. Now, one good thing about XLOOKUP is that we can do it horizontally or vertically. So now let's say we want the body for the fifth wine here. So let's put body here, and we can say XLOOKUP body in this row and give me whatever's in this row for body. Well, again, we get back that 30. And I can extend this just like I did with the vertical version and pull out all of that information there. So now we get all of those. So XLOOKUP can look both ways. So that's really good to know. And of course, we can change this to say sweetness, and we'll retrieve all of the sweetness figures one across. So if I wanted to look up the entirety of the sweetness column, I could just look for sweetness and return all of this, and I will pull that entire column. So if I looked for tannin, I would get this column. If I look for sweetness, I'll get this column, and so on and so on. I'll come back to this tab in a moment, but let's go on to the next more complicated example. So I have just some ChatGPT data here about gym supplements. So I asked it to give me some item categories. I've given them category numbers. So let me just show you that. This is my category names. This is my category numbers. Now I've labeled them like this for instructive purposes. So I'll get to that in a minute. And then I've given each item an item number. So as we get into a new category, the item numbers reset. So the first category will have items 1, 2, 3, 4, so on. The next category will have items 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So now let's say we wanted still kind of a one-dimensional lookup, but we want to look up a category number, an item number, and return what that item name is. So let's go for category 11, and let's go for item number, I don't know, 34. How do we look up both of those and retrieve an item? Well, what we can do is we can simply say XLOOKUP this and this in this and this, and return item name. So we get our item out for that combination. And you could do this for any number of things. You could look up 2, 3, 4, 5 columns, whatever you like. Now, let me just show you what's going on there. I'm saying equals category number and item number, and that's going to spill out these numbers combined. I'm also combining these numbers, so I'm just looking up the combination of these numbers in this column. Now, one problem, which you may have already thought about as you're watching this, we could actually have items that come out the same. So here, for example, we have category number 11, item number 1, and category number 1, item number 11. So we might pick the wrong thing here. So how do we get around that? Well, we can use a delimiter. So what we could say is, let's just do them both here. We can say XLOOKUP this and a dash or something, some other delimiter that we want, and this in this column and our dash and this column. And we want to return the item name. Okay, so now we actually get the unique numbers, because what we're saying this time is to do that which is actually different for each of them. So that's how to get around that issue. It doesn't come up often, but you need to be aware of it in case you make mistakes. Now the next question, how do I look up all item number 1s? So if I have item number 1 and say XLOOKUP, 1 in this, give me the item names, I'm only going to get the first entry for item number 1. To look up all of them, you actually use a different formula. You'll use the filter formula. So I want to filter the item names, and then the next argument is what to include, and this needs to evaluate for a true or false. So I want to say this equals our item number 1, and we will get all of the items item number 1, and then we could have all the items that are item number 2, all items that are item number 3, and so on and so on. And a nice thing to know about filter is that you can actually expand whatever you like, and you can filter as much or as little as you like of the table for where your argument is true or false. So I've just filtered the first 3 columns, so I get all 3 columns back. So that's really useful to know. And you can also filter for a second criteria. So let's say we wanted all item numbers 3 where the size is M. So let's just put M there. So to do that, on your filter criterias, you're actually going to put them each in brackets and then times them. So if I wanted lots of criteria, I would just do this and put all of my criteria in these brackets. We only want one additional criteria, so let's do it. We want the criteria where this equals M here. And now there's only one item number 3 that's medium. Any for those? Yep, actually lots of them are medium. 2, there's none. 3, 4, and so on. If I just go back to that 2 example, there's none. You can specify in the filter, if it's empty, what to say. So you could say none found, for example, and then we get none found for category number 2. So that's how to pull back multiple items. Now let's do a more complicated lookup back on this first tab. So now let's pull out this wine and the sweetness attribute. So we want where these 2 intersects, so the 72. Now I would call this a 2D lookup. So let's first do the XLOOKUP way. So we're going to say XLOOKUP this wine in here and return all of these columns. So we are going to get all of those things there. And now we have the numbers, we can actually say XLOOKUP sweetness in these headers and return this. Now remember earlier where I said the XLOOKUP doesn't need to be in line, it's all relative. What this is doing is it's looking up sweetness and going 1, 2, 3, okay, sweetness is the 4th thing across, so just return me the 4th thing across in this array. So we will get our 72 here, which is correct. So let's just put that into one formula, which will look a little bit more confusing when you can't see it spelled out. So we want to XLOOKUP sweetness in our headers and return what we had before, that array. So this works because XLOOKUP will return spilled arrays. So it's a nice one to know. You can kind of use XLOOKUP for everything, to be honest. So the other way is to find the row and column that we want to look at. So we can say X match this in our data here, and we can say X match this in our data here. So we're looking for the 16th item down in this array and the 5th one across. So we can then use index to say index this whole array, and we want the 16th down and the 5th across. So that's another way to get the 72. When you put it into one formula, it does look a little bit more messy. It would look something like this. Which can be a little tricky. If you want to write it in a formula bar more neatly, you can hold Alt and press Enter to do things on different lines. So you can kind of see, right, index, row, column. And now you know how to do most types of lookups. Let's build out an example combining all three. So we're going to do like a double 1D lookup and a 2D lookup. Obviously this is quite complicated, but it will show you the power of kind of this method, and you can do anything you like, essentially. So we want to look up the item name for these again. Let's do item 30, category 11. So we can say XLOOKUP category number and category name in category number and category name. And what we want to return is going to be dynamic based on this. So we want to return XLOOKUP the item name in this, and return, our return array needs to be the same size as this purple and green array. So let's make that so. And now we have a fully dynamic lookup. So I could look up the size code here instead, and we get a small. I could look up the item category. I could change this to, category 1 instead. I could change this to item 5, and it's going to just retrieve that data, item name, for anything I like. So I can flex what header I'm looking for, I can flex what category number and item number I'm looking for. So I have a lookup here with multiple columns vertically, one column horizontally. With this method you can use as many horizontal and vertical categories as you like, basically. Now let's go the other way around. If I gave you a number and said give me all of the wine names and attributes with that number, how would you do it? Well, let's say we wanted everything with attribute number 4. What we can actually do is say equals wine names and the headers, and what we will get spilled across here is the wine names with acidity, then alcohol, then body, and so on, because we're kind of broadcasting these out. And then we can say if this number equals 4, give me what was in that broadcast array, otherwise give me a blank. And what we'll see is, I'm just going to collapse this down a bit. What we'll see is we get an item wherever we are true. So this has a attribute value of 4 here. So that's where we're found. So in my concatenation, I'm actually just going to put a dash again, like we did earlier. And then I can say concatenate all of that stuff, concat. Then we get our wine and our attribute, and we can split it up. Now, what if there were multiple categories? So for example, let's choose, 41. Maybe there's multiple, so okay, there's multiple attributes here. So let's go back a step and not concatenate it. So this question is basically give me all wines that have, and attributes that have attribute number 41. So how do we do that? So we could use tocol with 3 to get rid of blanks and errors. However, these are not really blanks, they're kind of this double quotation mark thing here. So to get rid of them, instead of saying if it's false, give me that, we can say if it's false, give me NA, which is kind of forcing an error. And then we get a clean list of everything that has that attribute number. So that is all the lookups. And next time we will do data tables. If you have any questions, put them down below. And I hope that was useful.